I was in a relationship with this guy Jace for roughly 8 or 9 months. Things seemed decent enough, but in hindsight, there were clear warning signs I brushed off. He had a controlling streak and would go silent whenever I mentioned hanging out with friends. We ended up arguing over his habit of secretly checking my phone, which he did whenever I wasn't paying attention. Then, out of nowhere, he vanished. Total radio silence. No calls, no messages, blocked me on every platform. At first, I felt a wave of relief. The relationship had grown heavy and his constant monitoring was draining. But after 2 weeks of nothing, I started to fear something bad had happened to him. I even called hospitals, which feels so foolish now. After his disappearance, I went to a packed house party at my friend Lila's place. I was finally starting to feel like myself again, having a few drinks, when I ran into Jace while grabbing another. My heart sank and I turned to bolt, but he grabbed my arm, pleading, "Just listen to me." Lila noticed and came over asking if I was okay. I said it was fine, which was my first mistake. Jace looked off. His eyes were bloodshot like he'd been crying. He kept apologizing for vanishing, claiming his mom was in the hospital, a lie I later found out, and that he was overwhelmed. I should have left right then. I knew I should have walked away. But after more drinks and an hour of his remorseful apologies, I foolishly agreed to let him drive me home. He hadn't touched alcohol all night, which I took as him being responsible. In reality, he'd planned everything. We got in his car, and at first, it felt normal. He was attentive, asking about my job and family. But after half an hour, I noticed we weren't heading my place. When I questioned him, he said he wanted to show me something special to make up for his behavior. My unease grew as we left the city behind. The roads darkened, streetlights fading, then disappearing entirely, with only woods on either side. I told him to turn back, but he brushed it off with excuses like, "It's not far," or "You'll love it." My phone battery was low and the signal was fading. After hours of driving, mostly in tense silence because I was terrified, we turned onto a dirt road. No signs, just endless trees. My phone had no signal. The path got rougher until we stopped at a dilapidated cabin. It looked abandoned, boarded windows, sagging porch, in the middle of nowhere. "What is this?" I asked, refusing to leave the car. "My uncle's old hunting lodge," Jace said. "Get out." When I refused, he leaned over, opened my door, and yanked me out. I screamed, but the isolation swallowed my voice. He snatched my purse, took my phone, and dragged me toward the cabin. I fought, kicking and thrashing, but he was stronger. Inside, the place reeked of mold and earth. He shoved me into a windowless back room with a filthy mattress on the floor. The door had multiple locks on the outside. Before I could stand, he took my shoes and left, bolting the door. I banged on it, screaming for release, threatening that people would search for me. He laughed, saying, "Now you can't leave." He warned that if I tried to escape, he'd break my legs. I was trapped. Food was scarce, just granola bars and water he'd toss in occasionally. The only light came when he opened the door. My screams were drowned out by deafening music he'd blast. Once, in a quiet moment, I heard him mutter through the wall, "No one hears you. No one knows you're here." Time blurred. I begged him during his visits, swearing I wouldn't tell anyone if he let me go. He'd stare blankly, saying I needed to face the consequences of abandoning him, which was absurd since he'd ghosted me. At night, he'd sit outside the door, rambling about our future together, like living in the cabin, how I'd grow to love it, how he'd care for me if I obeyed. Sometimes he'd go silent for so long, I feared he'd left me to die. First update, I'm ready to share part 2 of this nightmare, because the first part barely captures it. I'm not sure why I'm writing this, maybe to warn others to spot the signs and run, because I sure didn't. I reread my first post and it almost feels made up, but the gritty mattress, the stale plastic smell of the water bottles, and my raw throat from screaming remind me it was real. I've been asked to detail everything from those days, so here's what I remember. That first night dragged endlessly. No clock, no phone, just darkness. I heard Jace moving around. Creaky floors, bursts of loud music when he wanted silence from me. The mattress was vile. The walls, cheap wood paneling, curling at the edges. My shoes, phone, and purse were gone. I heard him rifling through my bag. Sometimes he'd pause outside, listening. I was in full panic at first, trying everything, screaming, banging, even pleading through the door, which feels humiliating now. I apologized for things I hadn't done, hoping to appease him. He'd either laugh or lecture me about trust and loyalty, accusing me of abandoning him when he was the one who disappeared. His version of our breakup was delusional, with me as the villain. The worst part? I started adapting, not accepting it, but surviving. My stomach ached from hunger and stress. I clung to hope that someone would notice I was gone. But who? Lila saw me leave the party, but I'd said I was fine. My mom calls weekly, and I'd missed one call already, but she's 2 states away, and rarely follows through on her threats to check on me. My dad and I barely talk. He'd assume I was busy. I realized how easily someone could vanish. Jace's visits were unpredictable. Sometimes he'd drop off water and leave, other times he'd talk endlessly. He never touched me after shoving me in. But that wasn't comforting. It felt like he was biding his time. He ranted about his family, his mom, who wasn't in the hospital, I later confirmed. How no one understood him. How I was different. Then he'd flip, yelling about how girls like you always leave. The emotional whiplash was brutal. I didn't just sit there. I was furious. I searched the room for anything useful. Nothing but the mattress, water bottles, and granola wrappers. I used a metal zipper pull from the mattress to scrape at the door frame, slow but grounding. The walls were thin. I heard his phone beeping, his pacing, his muttering. On the second night, he stood in the doorway, staring. I tried to stay calm, asking what he wanted. He said I was lucky. He cared enough to keep me safe from toxic people. I nearly laughed at the absurdity, but he got intense, saying he knew I'd try to escape. I got bold, telling him he was deranged, that people would find me. He leaned close, his breath sour, ranting about how all women are the same. I shoved him, pure rage fueling me. He laughed, saying, "This is why I did this," and pushed me back onto the mattress before leaving. I realized politeness wouldn't save me. That night, I barely slept, listening for signs he was asleep to try the locks again. I tore at the mattress seams, checked hinges, nothing worked. My voice gave out from yelling. On what I think was day 3, I heard him on a call, sounding tense, repeating my name. I hoped someone was looking for me. Later, he tossed me my hoodie, saying, "You're cold, right? Be grateful." I kept it, but wondered if he was scared. He looked exhausted, hands trembling. By day 4, I broke. When he checked the locks, I threw a water bottle at his head. It bounced off, but he lunged at me. I bit his hand, drawing blood. He shoved me back, but I saw his keys on his belt and grabbed for them, missing. He screamed, storming out, pacing, kicking walls. I shook, but I'd seen the keys. My first real hope. I started tracking his routine. He'd leave early, likely for supplies. I heard a distant car once but couldn't scream in time. I kept fighting, refusing to give up. The next day, he brought a sandwich, acting kind, saying things could change if I stopped resisting. I asked why he was doing this. He said I needed to know what it felt like to be abandoned. Referencing his ex who left him for dead, he was punishing me for every woman who'd hurt him. I tried reasoning, saying Lila knew I was with him, that my family would search. He shrugged, saying no one cared. That infuriated me. I made noise, screaming, banging walls, dragging the mattress, hoping someone would hear. He'd blast music to drown me out but didn't stop me physically. By day 5, I was done waiting. I stood by the door, ready to fight when he entered. He looked drained, tried to talk calmly. I told him I'd escape. He smiled, saying I'd never leave, but he forgot to fully latch the top lock. I worked at it with the zipper pull for hours, creating a small gap. I saw my purse and his jacket, but no phone. For the first time, I thought I might get out. Second update. Thanks for sticking with me. Writing this feels surreal. When I tell people in person, they either bombard me with questions or think I'm exaggerating. But every detail, the mattress's grime, the cabin's musty smell, haunts me. Here's what happened after I found the loose lock. I'd created a tiny gap in the door, enough to see the hallway. My purse, Jace's jacket, and faint phone vibrations were out there, but I didn't know where he was. I planned desperately, catch him off guard, grab the keys, or sprint for the door. I had no shoes, just the zipper pull, and my feet were raw from the filthy floor. The silence was oppressive, not comforting. I heard Jace pacing, breathing outside the door, or muttering about his ex, his family, how everyone abandoned him. I yelled back, making noise to disrupt him. He'd blast music or enter calmly, which was worse than his anger. Once, he sat outside, talking about his dad's discipline and his ex's betrayal, as if I'd care. On day 6, I heard him on the phone, sounding normal, saying he was helping a friend at the cabin. He even laughed, which was jarring. I realized how little I knew about his family, his vague uncle, this cabin. I tried a new tactic when he brought food, casual talk about his mom, his childhood pet. He got suspicious, accusing me of manipulation, but ranted about Lila and my friends disliking him. I said Lila would notice my absence. He scoffed, calling me replaceable. I snapped, cursing him out. He left. That night, he returned, saying his mom had called, asking where he was. He demanded I record a video saying I was fine. He stood off camera, watching. I said, "I'm okay, just at the cabin." "No signal, don't worry," trying to hint at trouble but hesitating. He stopped the recording, deleted it, and said, "No games." He bolted every lock. I hoped my mom would notice I was gone. She's relentless, texting friends, or even my old roommate if I don't answer. But she travels often. My dad would assume I was off-grid. I tracked Jace's movements, noting when he left for hours. I worked at the lock, talked to myself to stay sane. Song lyrics, random trends. On day 7, a different car arrived. I screamed, banging the door. Jace yanked me back, furious, threatening to ensure I'd never be found. I kept yelling, but the car left. He went paranoid, double-checking locks, moving my stuff. He took the mattress, leaving me on the floor, blaming me for escalating things. Hunger made me foggy but defiant. I lunged at him during a water drop-off, grabbing his shirt. He shoved me into the wall. I kicked him. He ranted about my ingratitude. That night, I heard him answer a call, whispering, "She's fine, safe. No one's coming." I wondered if it was my mom or Lila. The next morning, he tossed me snacks, water, and socks, saying I'd earned them. I told him to screw himself. He said he didn't want to hurt anyone, but I'd regret trying to leave. I kept working at the lock, wedging plastic from the snack bag into the gap. I heard him argue on the phone, sounding stressed, giving me hope someone was suspicious. That night, I asked to use the bathroom. He agreed, gripping my arm. I bolted for the front door, slipping on the floorboards. He tackled me, and I fought, scratching, biting. He dragged me back, ranting about my betrayal. He started sleeping by the door, snoring at night. Outside, Lila had been texting me relentlessly, then contacted my mom, who tried filing a missing person report. But the police delayed, citing adults can disappear voluntarily. Lila rallied friends, but no one had seen me since the party. My mom called my old roommate, who was clueless. I kept planning, hiding a metal scrap as a tool or weapon, faking illness to lower his guard. He got sloppy, leaving the door unlatched briefly. Then, looking haggard, he dragged me outside, pointing at the woods, saying, "Run if you want." I froze, unsure if it was a trap, his wild eyes and trembling hands holding something metallic. Final update. I've been hesitant to finish this, unsure how to make it coherent. People keep asking what happened, and I need to release it. Here's what went down after he told me to run. Jace looked unhinged, unkempt, eyes red, shaking, holding his phone and something metallic, maybe a knife. I was in socks, my hoodie and jeans, freezing and exhausted. I didn't run immediately, staring at the woods, wondering if I could survive with no shoes, phone, or direction. I glanced at the cabin, considering grabbing my stuff. But Jace stood watch, breathing heavily. He started shouting, urging me to charge. I moved slowly, watching his shadow, expecting a trap. He followed at a distance, yelling that if I got lost, it was my problem. I trudged through mud, socks soaking, feet bleeding. The woods were endless, birds the only sound. After an hour, I feared I was circling. Panic set in. What if he was waiting? I heard branches snap. Jace appeared, furious, saying, "You thought you'd escape?" He grabbed me, dragging me back. I fought, elbowing his stomach, scratching his neck. We fell, wrestling in the dirt. He yanked my hoodie, pinning me. I screamed he'd never control me. He ranted about my ingratitude, dragging me back to the cabin. Inside, he paced, muttering about betrayal, throwing his phone, shattering it. He said I was lucky he hadn't done worse. I told him to burn in hell. He laughed, almost sobbing. That day was quiet. He barely spoke, looking erratic, checking windows obsessively. The power cut out, and he panicked, searching for batteries, accusing me of sabotage. I denied it, sensing his paranoia spike. While he hunted for a flashlight, I crept to his broken phone. Dead. I remembered my phone in a drawer. I searched frantically, finding my empty purse but no phone. Jace returned, catching me. I claimed I was hungry, grabbing chips he tossed. A car engine rumbled outside, closer than before, stopping. Jace killed his flashlight, plunging us into darkness, and peered outside, muttering curses. He grabbed his jacket, keys jangling, and stepped out. I yanked open the drawer, finding my phone. 3% battery, no signal. I shoved it in my hoodie and slipped out, crouching, heading for the woods. Voices carried, Jace's, defensive, and another, authoritative. A pickup truck's headlights pierced the fog. A man, maybe a ranger, questioned Jace. I ran, feet throbbing, following a faint path. Jace shouted my name, footsteps crashing behind. I hid, then saw tire tracks, a logging road. Sirens wailed faintly. Flashing lights appeared through the trees. I screamed, waving. A female officer found me, wrapping me in a blanket. Jace was cuffed near the cabin, avoiding my gaze. Lila had raised the alarm, contacting my mom, who put, "Some days, I'm okay. Others, I'm back in that room, hearing locks. I keep my phone charged and avoid being alone." I missed Jace's red flags, his control, jealousy, silences. I thought I could change him. I was wrong. If something feels off, trust your gut. Tell someone. Get out. I survived, but not everyone does. Thanks for following. If you're hooked, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell on my YouTube for more. Your support means the world.